Good afternoon. Welcome. My name is Kimberly Black-Rincan. I'm the director here at the Ignite Hub. And we are here for our second Future of Tech Lunch and Learn. Today's topic is AI in education, fear it or embrace it. We've been diligently preparing for today's event. So we are excited that everyone is here in person and online, that we have guests as well. I'd like to thank Verizon for their sponsorship of this guest speaker series that we have. So following this presentation, we will have lunch available for our in-person guests. Without further ado, oh, I see people trickling in. I'd like to say first, this is a very exciting topic. Anytime we've had an AI related topic, we get a lot of interest from the community. So when we were approached about this topic, we said, yes, we would love to have this panel here with our distinguished guests who are going to speak a little bit later as well. And we also have our Dr. Paul Miller, who I'll introduce in a moment. But I would like to point out this is a high flex space, and Dr. Miller is currently out of the area, and he is joining us virtually. So we're able to use our full capacity, not just to have guests join us virtually, but also have our presenters join us as well. So I'm glad that you're all a part of that. So without further ado, I will introduce first Dr. Miller, and then Dr. Miller will present our guests, and then we'll go from there. So Dr. Miller works here at Montgomery College. He is the Professional Development Director here in our elite unit, which services our staff and faculty training needs. Dr. Paul Miller has extensive experience in STEM instruction, K-12 curriculum development, instructional design and teaching methodologies, project evaluation, inclusive professional learning and development, instructional technology integration, instructional systems development, program implementation fidelity and evaluation, and over 34 million in federal and state grant facilitation and management. He has worked with school systems in 28 states and presented internationally at conferences on cooperative learning models, scaling programs for enhanced math achievement, effective leadership coaching practices, professional development, competency-based learning, and technology integration to support teaching and learning. Dr. Miller has been at the forefront here at Montgomery College talking about AI in education. He leads many workshops, courses, specifically for our staff, so that we are making sure that our team here at the college is not fearing AI and able to embrace it and incorporate it into their classrooms. So without further ado, Dr. Miller, I will turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks so much, Kimberly. And hi, everybody from not so sunny Southern California.
Dr. Miller, you're muted.
Oh, no, I'm not muted. Give me 1 second. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, Paul, we can hear you online.
Excellent. Yeah, online, you guys can hear me? Can
Yes.
you guys hear me in the Ignite Hub?
Okay. Can you try again, Dr. Miller, please?
Yep. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Excellent. Thank you. So good morning, everybody from not so sunny Southern California. Talk about modern technology, right? Being able to zoom in and work with my esteemed colleagues here to talk about AI in education. As Kimberly said, my name is Dr. Paul Miller, and I work in the Office of E-Learning, Innovation, and Teaching Excellence at Montgomery College. And, 14 months ago, the world, including higher education, was really faced with a new innovation and challenge or opportunity, depending on how you see things like generative AI. So generative AI in higher education is pretty much synonymously known as ChatGPT. So what did MC do? 14 months ago, we responded very, very quickly, because ChatGPT came in and it pretty much disrupted our world because it could do lots of things that couldn't be done prior to the release of ChatGPT in November of 2021. So we have responded by providing vast amounts of professional development to faculty and staff across the college to build awareness and understanding of how generative AI can really change what we do and how we do it. And we really kind of take the stance of it's all about perspective. We need to coexist with generative AI because one, it's not going anywhere. And two, in the 80s, video didn't kill the radio star after all. So generative AI is only going to be something that we use to support ultimately the impacts that we make on students. So let's put this into perspective. ChatGPT has over 100 million users. In fact, it was the fastest application in history until about 2 months ago when Threads dethroned the application rate. It reached 1 million users in 5 days. So think about that for a second. 1 million users in 5 days. Now, that doesn't seem like a lot, but again, when you put it into perspective, it took Instagram 2.5 months to reach that same feat, and it took Netflix 3.5 years. So generative AI is something that has been adopted by the masses at an immense scale. Every month, over 1.8 billion users visit ChatGPT and create the outputs for various questions that they ask. So ChatGPT and generative AI is pretty simple. You ask a question, it goes through a black box of information, and it generates an output. If you're not satisfied with the output, you can continuously ask it questions. And that's where this humanistic side of generative AI really comes into play. Now, the US accounts for about 15% of all of the use of generative AI through ChatGPT, which means that this is an international phenomenon. 85% of users of ChatGPT are from other countries around the world. So really, education, higher education, the K-12 system around the world is really facing a kind of a dilemma. How do we actually use ChatGPT to support student outcomes? And when used correctly, it really can be a thought partner for faculty, staff, and students. It can provide automated feedback, 24/7 feedback to students, faculty, and staff. It can create tailored learning pathways, and it can be more sophisticated in its feedback the stronger that the application actually gets. So in education, ChatGPT is a wicked problem, but we like to call it an opportunity to really increase our efforts to promote student engagement and outcome. And we know that this new phenomena that we're dealing with, even though it's not so new anymore, in 10, 15 years' time, will be just as powerful as the cell phones that we hold in our hand. So the students that are starting kindergarten this year or first, second grade, when they get to us at Montgomery College in 10, 12 years' time, they will know no different than how things like ChatGPT can actually support their learning experience. So I'm thrilled today to introduce our two guest speakers. We have Ashki Tenvir, and Ashki is with the REI Systems, and he's also a adjunct faculty member at MC. And he has a computer science degree from the University of Maryland, College Park, a fellow Terp like myself, and an MS in computer science from Johns Hopkins University, which is also where I got my doctorate degree from. So Ashki, we have a lot in common. As I said, Ashki's been an adjunct faculty member at Johns Hopkins for over 12 years, and he's the currently leading the third largest FDA IT contract with over 200 plus staff mission-critical IT modernization programs in use. And he has over 26 years of hands-on software development, design, and architecture experience. So Ashki, welcome to Montgomery College. Our second guest speaker today is Jessica.
Sorry.
Oh, I have an echo here, so hopefully you guys can hear me okay. Jessica Barrales. So Jessica is the executive officer in the Office of Digital Transformation at the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. She's a member of the ODT's strategic team, but I've just lost all of your information, Jessica, from the slides. So I'm going to allow you to explain who you are when it gets to you, because I know we have lots to cover today. So without further ado, Ashki, I'll turn it over to you. And Jessica, again, I apologize for losing your information off of the screen here. So Jessica, let me introduce you again. So, so Jessica is a member of the ODT's executive leadership team and oversees the FDA's information technology strategy, policy, management operations, people and culture communications, and learning development. Jessica's previous roles include Executive Director for Strategy and Operations, Senior Advisor to the CEO, and Senior Advisor to the Principal Deputy Commissioner. She is currently a doctoral student at the University of Pennsylvania and earned her Master's of Arts and Masters of Science from the University of Arizona. She has received agency, federal, and industry awards for her work at the FDA and national recognition for her volunteer work. So Jessica, welcome to Montgomery College. Without further ado, I'll turn it over to the two of you to present on your respective presentations.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Miller, for the warm introduction. I want to take a moment and thank Ignite Hub, thank Montgomery College, thank the organizer of this event, giving us a wonderful platform to talk about something that is just so relevant for us today. I am Ashik Tanvir, as Dr. Miller introduced, and I'm going to talk today about the impact of AI on education. Essentially, we'll discuss a little bit about how AI is expected to shape the way we teach and learn. And I'm also super fortunate to be speaking alongside with Jessica Berles from FDA, and she's a wonderful, wonderful speaker if you haven't heard her speak in the past. So obviously we'll have time today. So next slide. So just like Dr. Miller said, it's hard to go anywhere these days without ChatGPT being mentioned, whether it's a social gathering, conference. Last week, I was at Orlando, the HIMSS conference, the health IT conference, the health conference, and all the sessions and exhibits were discussing ChatGPT, artificial intelligence, and how that's going to sort of revolutionize the patient care and healthcare. January, I was in a government business executive forum conference in Las Vegas, same theme. All the sessions, all the exhibits were how government is going to do different business differently using artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence will essentially impact pretty much every domain, and academic domain is no different. But obviously, just like many other revolutionary technologies, there are folks in favor of artificial intelligence, and there are some concerns, and some concerns might be valid, and we just have to be a little bit cautious about it. But if you think about it, even if our smartphones, we have been using smartphones for 15 years, and we are still trying to come in terms how smartphone has significantly impacted our society, right? It has changed the way our kids, deal with the social media and all of that. So ChatGPT will have a significantly larger impact on the society compared to even smartphone invention, even though up until now we thought that was like the biggest invention, the smartphone and internet. Okay, so I want to take a moment and play a video, which is a commercial, and I found it very funny, but also very relevant to the discussion that Jessica and I will have today about the impact on education and impact on workforce. So can we play the video?
Looking to for the future?
This new AI can perform all coding jobs in seconds, including blockchain development. While this AI is already outperforming accounting firms. Meanwhile, the new graphic design AI aims to automate graphic design and could minimize the need for...
Relax. Because in a future where AI does most of the work, there'll be one thing that humans will finally get to do all day long. Nothing. So it's time to learn the most essential skill of the future. 5-Star presents Nothing University with the first ever diploma program in doing nothing. An intensive course covering the most future-ready skills out there.
Well, let me check with the and get back to you in a few days.
Super. With our state-of-the-art workshops, campus placements, and guest lectures, the world can finally prepare for the glorious future that awaits us. Beat 5-star. Do nothing. Enroll now.
Thank you, Edward, for playing it. So I can tell you for sure,
Looking to
there's
upskill.
nothing true about that Nothing University and what you just saw, right? Obviously, in fact, a month ago, my son came up to me. He's in high school and going to college next year. That, I changed my mind. I'm not going to study computer science anymore. I said, why? Oh, in future, AI will do all the programming and coding. So why would I study, right? So I said, I have been teaching computer science for, almost like 13 years, and I have so many students. So you're telling me that whatever I'm doing is purposeless and all my students will have no job? That's absolutely not true. It's a myth, right? Now, going to the artificial intelligence, when ChatGPT also first came around, colleges and high schools, they got a little scared because students were cheating and this and that. You probably saw some news on social media and other places. And, some institutions started banning ChatGPT, but that's not the right solution, right? You cannot stop the creativity and innovative tool. Rather, we have to sort of adapt around it. And 1967, when calculator first came around, same thing, right? The teachers thought, oh my God, we're gonna raise a bunch of dummies for the next 50 years because no longer students will be able to do a 14-digit multiplication in their head. But was back in my home country, that's how they still think. They don't allow calculator in exams. But here, I just had my midterm exam last week, and one of my students is actually in this room right now. We allow calculator, absolutely. And even in the high school SAT exam, we allow calculator, because when you allow those basic functions to be done by some machines, that's okay, because the smarter people, the human brain, will free up to do something at a higher level, right? Because we allowed calculator everywhere, that's led to the revolution of smartphone and internet and ChatGPT, see where we are today, right? So next slide. Our classrooms have evolved, obviously. Back in 1950, it was just blackboard and writing. And if you think about it, back in the days, good that I wasn't around back then, that teachers would have to spend a lot of energy writing on the board, then actually connecting to the students, right? But when projector came around, yeah, that was a sort of a revolution. Since I had started teaching back in 2011 or 12, classrooms had projected. It was easy because we would just, present just prepared material, so we could spend more time talking to the students. And even when in classroom, computers came around, that was easy, particularly for computer science students. In my days, I had to go to a laboratory or lab after the class and remember what the teacher said to practice that code. But here, students can do it right there in the classroom. But since I have started teaching 2011-12, computers were already in the classroom, the projector was there. So for me, there was no change until now, right? Until ChatGPT and all these tools came around that helps me, helps the students as well. So 2027, the prediction is 47% of all the learning management platform will be AI powered. I mean, things that we use in this college, Montgomery College right here, Blackboard. I'm sure that there are already some component of Blackboard that is AI powered, but the whole thing can be, completely AI powered. And there are already learning management system out there which are AI powered. So to truly understand the benefit of AI on education, we need to first understand what the problems are today. So next slide. So as a teacher, I always, this lack of time, right? So for this part, for the next few seconds, the student in my class, you might want to close your ear and turn away. But grading is a chore, right? And nobody knows better than my wife, who is also in the room. She works for FDA. We are a big FDA family. But she often hears me saying, "Oh my God, I got a grade 60 papers." And that's a job, right? At work. And Jessica knows it. I mean, at FDA, we have a lot of status report that we have to do every week. Now, developing the software, architecting software, developing new UI, being creative, that's fun. But all the status report we do, it's just something we have to do, but it's not something we enjoy doing. Same thing with grading, right? I mean, so my wife would often ask me that if you're complaining about grading, why do you teach? I said, that's not right. I love teaching. I love talking to the students. I love explaining them, and I love connecting with them, but grading something I have to do. So again, grading, providing detailed feedback to the student, that takes time. for all their assessment and everything they're doing and timely way. Maintaining all their records, creating obviously the course material, even though that's probably not all the time, but those takes time. So there is a study done or survey done, 49%, only 49% of the time that teachers spend on actually connecting to the student, talking to them and other sort of providing advice and counseling. The rest is all administrative tasks, right? It should really be the other way. In my mind, it should be almost 80% time I should be talking to the students, spending time for them, not doing all the back end work, which I wish some other assistant could do it, right? But there is hope. So if you go to the next slide, so from overwhelmed, I want to feel liberated. I want to feel liberated by using AI so I can connect to the students, spend more time for them, right? So let's look at the flip side for the student's life, right? Let's go to the next slide. So a student often feels lack of support because there is only one teacher and the 30 students, right? Or maybe sometimes more. And I see that after my class, students are lined up, maybe sometimes 8, 9 students lined up to ask questions. And by the time I reach the 9th student, I'm so tired, I want to go home. So obviously I try to spend as much time, but it's not like actually for an hour to answer every question. That's just not possible. But that would have helped the students. I realized that. Lack of, like I said, detailed, timely feedback. Students would love continuous feedback, not just, maybe after a quiz, but, if they had it. Now, and obviously, if they're studying at 4 a.m., they have a question on the syllabus, or they have a question on one of the topic. Obviously, the teacher may not be around. Sometimes I do respond even like 1 or 2 a.m. My students know it. And my wife will like, who are you responding at 1 or 2 a.m.? I will say, either I'm responding to my boss or to my students. Those are the two people that I respond at 2 a.m. because I know that there is a homework due or, something is coming up or an exam is coming up and they need the answer. There is also a study done called 2 Sigma Problem by Benjamin Bloom. It's a famous study done back in the days that if students had one-to-one dedicated teacher for each student, I wish I had that for my son too, then the mediocre student, their score would literally double. So he studied over a period of time with a cohort of students, and he proved that if they had continuous support, they would have done so much better. But of course, financially, that's not possible. But now with AI, there is a hope. So go to the next slide. Again, for students, instead of being stressed and tearing apart their hair, we want students to feel confident and empowered, right? And they can do that with effective use of AI. So with that in mind, you can already tell that I am extremely pro AI, and I want students and teachers both to successfully use some artificial intelligence-based tool. So let's look at some of the ways the teacher, and then I'll show you how the students can use artificial intelligence. Go to the next slide. So from an educator perspective, okay, so save time in generating course material. There are so many AI-based tools these days to generate PowerPoints and slides and course materials. You just prompt it. In fact, I will tell you the secret, and I'm proudly, there's no shame. This entire slide was generated by Slides2Go. I didn't do anything. Well, I did some work, but it was. So I did just subscribe to that, and I gave it the prompt and said, go generate the slides. So it did, 15, 20, whatever the slides it generated. So, and obviously I had to tweak it, but at least it was a good starting point because starting is always the hardest, right? Then I didn't like the graphics that it generated for each slide. So I took the text of each slide, and then I fed into ChatGPT-4, which is the paid version. Every graphics that you see on this slide, just ChatGPT-4. I didn't go Google and search it. What it did, it of that slide and generated something that's somewhat relevant, right? Whatever it did. Again, the fact that instead of spending 1 or 2 weeks, I just spent a few hours, isn't that amazing proof of how even teachers can use to generate course materials? And I have done that myself as well. Not only course materials, I mean, ChatGPT-4 and any other AI-based tool will help you generate assessment and quizzes. You can upload a PDF or a course sort of material and say generate questions, and you can give it level, like generate questions at grade level 10, grade level 12, or a college level, and it will read that and then generate questions. It's amazing, right? It will generate quiz questions, so a matter of seconds. So that is a game changer. Quiz, exams, discussion topics. Okay, next slide. So grading, like I mentioned, that our AI-based tool is capable of grading hundreds and hundreds of paper in seconds. Students no longer, like my student here, no longer have to wait like 2 weeks to get a feedback back. I'm maybe exaggerating there, but you get the point that it's just so amazing. In fact, there is a tool called GradeScope, and there are many. I mean, I just picked one from the internet randomly. They claim that they save 70% reduction in grading and keeping records of the student grade and all of that, because it takes time. I grade it, then I have to put all this in Excel, then I have to put it into Blackboard here and there. But if there is a platform that does everything for me, then why not? And not only just grading, but providing the detailed feedback. These tools are capable of looking at students' mistakes and finding the pattern and finding what is amazing. They can find the root cause, that where is the misconception, and provide guide and provide tool. Even like Khan Mingo or Khan Academy has a paid version that does the same thing. It not only tells students that you are wrong. The new AI-based Khan Academy, that one actually tries to find out where is the misconception and hits it right there and explains it more. So again, that kind of detailed feedback can really help students. In fact, ChatGPT does a fairly decent job, not perfect, that I can feed in any Java, it is Java, C++, whatever. It's a Java code, or you can put a COBOL code, doesn't matter. I can put a Java code and say, analyze it, critique it, and grade it out of 100. It does an okay job. Not that I can blindly rely on it. It's not perfect, but it's a starting point. It actually analyzes the code and critiques it, finds all the issues. So pretty cool. Okay, next slide. Provide instant initial response, which is amazing, because that's what will help me. What will help me? I'm happy because I don't have to reply at 2 a.m. If I fit in all the syllabus, all the course material, the books these days are digital. All the digital books is this guy, ChatGPT type AI-based tool can read everything. Not only that, my personal notes, if I can fit into it, it can have all the information. Then there is nothing stopping it from answering everything the way I would. It can literally take my form and answer on behalf of me at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. So now imagine that power, right? You would exactly, so if a student is asking a question on a clarification, on a syllabus or a course material, not only that, I have tried it. If a student asks for an extension, and they write an email with a justification that I need an extension, there was a family emergency, medical leave, blah, blah, blah. I can already prompt my AI-based tool that if you get a question, justification that matches these, just respond this way, that just say, yep, I'm going to give you a 1-week extension, right? There's no reason for me to go read that email and respond when there is a pattern of how I would do it. Again, it's not going to do everything, but it can get me there pretty close. The University of Murcia in Spain, 91% accuracy, that it answered 38,000 student inquiries, and they proved it. So, and did it with a great deal of accuracy. So pretty amazing. Okay, next slide. Okay, gain data-driven insight on student performance. So that is another amazing thing. And you see that down below, Indiana Ivy Tech Community College employed an AI-powered algorithm to study courses and identify 6,000 students who are prone to failing, who may fail ahead of time, right at the beginning of the semester. Amazing. I wish I knew that. In my student of 60 students or 30 students in my classroom, if I could tell who are prone to fail, yeah, by the time I figure out, it's a little late, right? But this thing can look at so many patterns, not only look at how the student is doing in this class, on certain quizzes, but it can also look at the student's history for all the past courses, sort of the pattern, how the student does, and when the student gives up, when the student gets frustrated. All that is data-driven, if you think about it. Not only it can look at this student, what this student has done in the past and now, it can compare this course with the previous versions of this course that other students have taken. And as an example, if it knows from historically last 5 years, if it can tell that, okay, whoever does not do well on quiz number 3 tends to not do well in the final exam. Again, I'm just throwing a very simple but example, but you get the point. If you feed all the right data, it is possible to predict the outcome. Maybe not always perfect, but at least it's a good starting point. But the good thing is that will allow the teachers like me to formulate strategies that how can I help certain students. Okay, next slide. Okay, in terms of creating course material, this is another amazing tool that it can simulate student behavior. There are AI-based tools out there now that can simulate student behavior and even ask questions. So as an example, just this presentation that I'm doing, if I had that tool, I would, just run through it, and it would find the gaps that what am I saying that's confusing, potentially confusing to all of you, and he would prompt me that clarify that area, right? He would even ask me questions that you are likely to ask. So again, in a classroom setting, I can prepare the night before or the week before so much better because I can predict what the students are going to ask. And in fact, if you see Stanford, there was a AI-powered chatbots that developed, which demonstrated confusion just like a human. So it could demonstrate confusion of a, let's say a college student, just like a human would be confused when you are talking about something, it could simulate that, which is pretty cool, right? Okay, next slide. So similarly, talking about lecturing in classroom, there are tools already out there. They're a little premature, but this is where the world is heading, that can monitor your classroom dynamics. And they're audio-based tool that you can turn on, and it's going to listen to the audio, how you are talking, what is your pitch, what is your tone, how you are engaging with the student, and it will track the pattern and come back and tell you later that, hey, on that particular day, when you provided this example, this was your pitch, this was your tone, this is how you interacted, students engage more. They ask more questions, right? That's what we want. Because when students are asking more questions, they're paying attention and all of that, right? So imagine like almost an invisible assistant sitting there observing me for a good reason and coming back and telling me when I was successful, when I wasn't, right? And then not only, the student's outcome, it can also correlate that on a certain lecture that I did really well, that lecture, whatever question was in the exam from that lecture day, students did really well on average. And it can start prompting me and telling me as a teacher, as an educator, when I did better. So again, I can feel more, not only more motivated, but I know what's working for this group of students. Every group of students is different, right? No two classrooms are same. Otherwise, I could do the same thing every classroom. Every student, so it's going to observe and monitor how students are interacting, how enthusiastic they are in their question tone, in their pitch. And based on that group, it can suggest. So again, pretty amazing. Go to the next one. Detect learning difficulty early. And again, looking at the pattern of how the student has been doing, it can allow faculty like me to intervene early because it can see learning difficulties. If a student has really a learning difficulty or behavioral issue, like there is a pattern of a student who does not do well on the first two quiz, pretty much the student gives up. And there are all kinds of students, right? Trust me on that. So again, if a tool could continuously monitor that and alert me, I could help that student. I could figure out a way to do something. But oftentimes we have too many students, and by the time we figure out, it's a little too late. So go to the next slide. Okay, so those are the key things from an educator perspective. So now let's look at the flip side, that how students can benefit from AI-powered tools. Okay. Eduardo, how are we doing on time?
It's 12:35.
Okay, great. So interactive books, dynamic quizzes, assignments. So again, students can engage with more interactive books, the books that talks back to you, not just the dead books. Before it was just paper books, but now all books are digital. So one step up, but still the book doesn't talk back to you. But here you can ask questions to the book, right? Not only the book, a character in the book, you can ask it questions and the AI tool will answer you back. And gamified element is just to keep the students more motivated. And in fact, there has been some study that when the book is a lot more interactive and there's gamified elements, students are motivated continuously because as if the book is talking back to you just like a teacher, and you can ask questions back to it, right? Next slide. Adaptive learning, tailored experience. So every student, and this is one of my favorite, what if the book just grows and shrinks back with you, depending on you? So the textbook is static, of course, as of today. But if the book detects that you are struggling on a particular section, you are not getting it because it asks you 2-3 questions, and it knows it doesn't get it. There is nothing stopping that digital textbook to expand itself, give more examples. And ChatGPT type tool can find unlimited examples of code examples or from the internet, and it will provide more helpful links until you get it. When you get it, then you will move on to the next section. So think of a living book, as I call it, like that. And that should be the future and will be the future. Okay, next slide. Student in remote area can access ChatGPT or other AI-based tool, and that's pretty amazing because they have the same advantage as what we have here in the US. Somebody is in one of the other countries or not so technologically advanced places, they can still access all the tools and power. Okay, let's go to the next slide. 24/7. This is related to what I said earlier that I cannot be there for the students 24/7, but students are starting at 4 a.m. and they need the answer right then. They cannot wait for me to email back next morning because they need a conception. They need some conception to be cleared because otherwise they cannot move forward, right? So here they could ask questions, right? Whether it's about the syllabus or about the textbook or about a conception, they can ask. And in fact, IBM's Watson at Georgia Tech proved that 10,000 students' inquiries was able to answer with 97% accuracy. Obviously, it can. Okay, next slide. Yeah, language barrier. This is again, I shared this on my LinkedIn that the other day, one of my students was telling me in classroom that he is French native speaking. And he said, with all respect, I find it difficult to understand your lecture because in English. And same thing with the book, I don't understand it enough. But with ChatGPT, I can upload a code and ask it to explain line by line in French. And it does it. So solves my problem. Isn't that cool and amazing? Not only that, again, if you think about it, is Bridge, the ChatGPT or AI-based tool, they're continuously learning. So they're learning from a US scientist what this person is asking or inputting, and they're transferring that knowledge back maybe to China or to India or Bangladesh, one of the countries back there where the students do not have direct interaction to the scientists. So again, it's breaking all that global barrier to bringing people together. Okay, next slide. Yeah, there are some dark sides of artificial intelligence tools. We should mention it. Privacy concern is a big deal because something is continuously monitoring you. So are the 35 Alexas that I had home. My wife doesn't like it, but I love it. So what? It listens to me. But again, I'm very pro it. So. Okay, so privacy concern is one. Then bias that this tool is works on based on whatever data you fit into it. So if the data is biased, it will give biased decision. Affordability. Some students in the same classroom may not have computer, may not have internet, may not have a smartphone. The other student has smartphone. They can look up things in ChatGPT. This student cannot. So there is some worries there. Administrative job concern that ChatGPT will take some of the administrative job away. Go to the next slide. Quality and accuracy, like I said, even like when it's analyzing the Java code, it's there, but it's not perfect. You still have to do work, but it still gets you 60% there, which is still good enough for me. Over dependency and the relationship with the teacher, that's a concern. If students only start relying on ChatGPT at 4 a.m. and don't even ask me questions, then I'll be out of job, but I'll be also bored. So that's not going to work. Training for teachers, the teachers have to be continuously trained on artificial intelligence tools. Okay, next slide. Yep, we can skip this one actually. These are just some tools that I used recently. Closing remarks, basically, I want to mention that, go to the next slide. Yep, so again, AI is there to empower teachers, not to replace them. That will likely never happen. It will foster creativity in students. It's not going to make them dumb, just like the calculator did not make them dumb back in 1967. So that will something we want to keep in mind. Careful consideration of ethical implication and data privacy is important. When we are implementing AI-based tools. Collaboration between the teachers and the AI developers is important. So teachers embracing AI and then working with the AI developers to really make it successful, that's where the ultimate success is. And working together, we can enhance teaching, we can enhance the learning experience. So I'm going to end there before I hand it over to Jessica, and I think we can take questions at the end. So thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to sit, but it was just so fascinating to hear your perspective as a technologist and as an educator. I am neither one of those things, and I'm also not a futurist, but I am someone who helps to run a technology organization and is leading technology strategy, thinking about policy, how we direct our funding investments, and also spending a lot of time thinking about how we help to empower and develop our workforce and really ensure that we are prepared for the future of work. And so that's really the perspective that I'm sharing with all of you today. Next slide, please. So in following with the sci-fi theme, I had to add a little bit of levity to my slides and include a robot. I feel like a lot of the rhetoric in pop culture and in the media is really, very, very sci-fi and dystopian. But the reality is, as Ashik, you shared, AI is already a very active part of our daily life. And there's a lot of hype right now, particularly around, obviously, generative AI, as Dr. Miller shared with us. But AI has actually been around for a long time, starting in the 1950s. And it really feels, though, that over the last several months, there's been a lot of chatter and interest, particularly, obviously, around ChatGPT. And so the way that we're thinking about AI in my organizational environment, the FDA, is really viewing it as a type of emerging technology. And so this graph here is the Gartner hype curve, and it's a really helpful way of thinking about technology and thinking about AI, and really helping to contextualize a lot of the anticipation and the hype and some of the AI anxiety that we're feeling and hearing about. In terms of the broader sort of way that technologies and innovation are typically diffused. And so Ashik, you shared a photo of one of the original PCs. It looked like my first PC from 1988. But really, when you think about a lot of the concerns that we're hearing about and talking about AI are the same types of concerns that were raised when the calculator was introduced, electricity, bicycles, cars, subways. And so, these are all questions that we have grappled with before as a human society. And I do think that we are well equipped to continue thinking in a really thoughtful way. Next slide, please. So we talked a little bit about the Gartner hype curve, and I mentioned just how ubiquitous AI already is. This morning, I asked Alexa what the weather was going to be. On my way over here, I had Siri help me call my husband. The AI-powered features in Gmail, which is an app that many of us use, helped me write an email to my daughter's teacher this morning. And so these are all small examples of how we're already using AI in our everyday life and benefiting from it in very small ways. All of us, I assume, use the internet, and that is such a great example of how AI is really enhancing personalization through, all of the content that we see there. And there's so many other much more compelling applications when it comes to AI. But bottom line, it's no longer science fiction. It's here, and we're already using it, whether we know it or not. Next slide, please. So I shared that I do spend a lot of time thinking about AI in our daily lives and the future of work. And I do believe that AI will continue to change how we work. But I really view the future, similar to Ashik, your perspective, as one that is very collaborative, where we can use AI technologies to enhance the work that we're doing, to empower us to focus on higher value activities and tasks, and really approach it in a very collaborative way if we are thoughtful and responsible about how we're using it. Next.
Of course. Oops.
So this is an interesting statistic from the World Economic Forum, and they publish a wonderful annual resource on the future of jobs that has so much rich information. But you know, in the recent report, they estimated that AI and automation in particular would transform 50% of today's jobs. I think that that's probably a pretty high estimate, at least in my work environment. We are nowhere close to that. But I do think it's indicative of some of the significant changes that we can anticipate and that we're already seeing. But nonetheless, do not fear the robot takeover. This is, AI is really good at certain kinds of things and not so good at a lot of other things. What AI really excels at is processing vast amounts of data and identifying patterns. And particularly in my environment, we are a scientific information and data organization. We produce massive amounts of data. We store the amount of data that's equivalent to all of the books that are held at the Library of Congress. And so the potential for AI to help us to be able to sift through all of that data is really tremendous. And that's something that a lot of other organizations can also benefit from. I also think, though, that humans bring some very unique skills that AI cannot replicate, or at least will not be able to replicate for a long time. And that's creativity, critical thinking, and all of the wonderful social skills that make us innately human. Next slide, please. So in terms of debunking some of the myths, I know that we're a little over time, so I will talk quickly. So the robots are not coming for our jobs. Like other technologies that we have seen throughout history, some jobs will be automated, but new jobs will be created. Very similarly, there is a lot of discussion around sentient AI. We are certainly not there yet by any stretch of the imagination. And some of the things that AI does not do well are because it lacks emotional intelligence, it lacks empathy. So certainly my personal perspective is that a lot of the career paths and roles that are very focused on creativity and these skills are really going to continue growing as AI progresses. Next slide, please. So we talked a little bit about navigating some of the challenges when it comes to, job displacement and the fear of being left behind. Again, I think that it's really important to focus on lifelong learning and upskilling and reskilling, and I'll talk about that in a little while. But also, I think really spending a lot of time focusing on ethical considerations. This is critically important. AI algorithms can really do a lot of harm in perpetuating biases that are present in the data that they're trained on in the algorithms. And this can lead to some pretty serious potential outcomes in a lot of different areas, whether it be hiring or loan approvals or the criminal justice system. And so we really need to ensure that ethical considerations and questions related to bias are front and center in all of our approaches to using AI. And this is something that developers need to be aware of, that organizations need to be aware of, but also that all of us as end users need to be mindful of. And there's really a lot of space here, I think, for policy development. And I'm happy to talk with anyone who's interested later on about some of the work that we're doing that and around governance, because that's something that we're really prioritizing within my organization. There are also significant privacy considerations, security considerations that we are, working through together, that even those of us who are not technologists and are really everyday users need to be incredibly mindful of. The last piece here that relates to what I just shared is around transparency and explainability. And this really comes down to being able to ensure that there are checks and balances that can protect us from misuse and from harm, and developing the skills to be able to make those types of assessments is really important. Another significant barrier, which Ashik, you hit on a little too, is just as cost and an equity of access. So particularly around organizations or educational institutions or communities that are under-resourced and underserved. And so that's something else that is critically important, being mindful of the diversity, equity, and inclusion and accessibility aspects as we're evaluating how we can best use this new technology. Next slide, please. So in terms of, I think we might have skipped slides here, but in terms of the benefits, I think that Ashik, you did a wonderful job of covering them. There's certainly a lot of benefits to AI in terms of enhancing human performance. And here's just a snapshot of some of the new roles that AI will help to create. And this was taken from that World Economic Forum report. But what really, when you look at this list, you know, the takeaway here is that there will be new roles that are created focused on how we can understand and use AI technology. And simultaneously, there will be new roles created that really help to kind of enhance and demonstrate the unique values and creativity that we bring as humans. Next slide, please. So in terms of productivity, enhancing performance, certainly increase productivity, improve decision-making, and also predictions, which you hit on, enhanced innovation. And this relates to looking at AI as a partner and as a collaborator, and also growth and competitiveness. So, you know, organizations and individuals that are able to leverage AI in a smart and sustainable way are going to have a competitive edge. But the reality is that AI is not a silver bullet by any means. Next slide, please. So this is really, I think, that if you take one, you know, kind of message from this discussion, it's really this one around digital mindset. And I feel like oftentimes we think, especially for those of us who work in the IT space, we think in terms of technical and business, or technical and non-technical. And, you know, this is like a long-standing dichotomy, but the reality is that we should all think of ourselves as technical, regardless of what we do, because the majority of us are digital workers. And we're already using AI, and we should prepare to continue using AI in a lot of new ways. And so what's important for us to think about is, you know, not so much how we can start developing all of these wonderful technical skills, which, you know, obviously if you are a technologist is a wonderful thing to do, but, you know, thinking more in terms of mindset. How can you think about applying AI in a way that is responsible and that is smart and is sustainable. And so that requires a certain level of understanding of the key issues, the terms that are important, the important concepts, and not so much focusing on developing certain, you know, technical skills. And so I think about this concept in terms of like mastery and proficiency. When you think about, you mentioned an English language learner, you know, when you think about the number of words that you need to learn to be proficient in the English language, it's probably tens of thousands, right? Or sorry, to be a master and to truly have fluency. But if you think about it, you know, it's really only a subset of those thousands of words that you need to know to be proficient and to be effective in most things. And so that's really, from my perspective, a really productive way to think about, you know, what is important to know about AI or about any other emerging technology. It's that subset of the key things, and you know, really more of like 30% versus knowing everything or trying to develop very deep technical skills. Next slide. So in terms of future-proofing your skills, and I'm sharing this because I assume a lot of folks here are either educators or they're students, but I think that this first one here, thinking critically, is so important, especially in this day and age where we are faced with so much information. I see several smartphones here in the room, and if you think about it, as individuals, we are producing massive amounts of data every day, in our smartphones alone. And so being able to be very critical and to be a good problem solver and to be able to sift through the noise and also to be able to ask good questions around ethics and harm and privacy, that's really critically important. Also being adaptable and continuously investing in lifelong learning. Digital and AI literacy is so important. And I think that, this isn't something that's nice to have anymore. It's something that all of us need to have. And so that's, again, that the basic understanding of terminology and issues and potential applications, the advantages and disadvantages that we talked about, that's really important. And finally, communication and collaboration. It's interesting, we've been talking a lot about ChatGPT today, but for those of us who are using generative AI in some way, when you think about the skills needed to use ChatGPT, we're learning new communication skills, prompt engineering, and so that's critically important. And also, I think continuing to focus on collaboration. A lot of the big and really important questions that AI has brought to the forefront require that we work and think in a very cross-disciplinary way, and that we bring experts from different fields and different sectors together. And so communication and collaboration are really going to be, I think, what leads us into this new future together. Next slide, please. So really quickly, this is an area that I'm personally very passionate about. I have a lot of examples to share about some of the early activities that we're doing. I'm not sure if we have time to, so I'll just hit on some of the key points. I talked about AI literacy. This is critically important. It's something that we're prioritizing at the FDA. Over the summer, I launched an AI for Everyone literacy program, and it's really focused on our general population of employees within our organization. We have over 18,000 employees and several thousand more contractors. And so this is really intended not for technology workers, but for everyone, and introducing them to some of the key concepts and challenges that we're working through together. And I think that, like this early effort that we're initiating, there are a lot of other really wonderful programs focused on AI literacy that are worth investing in. Fostering digital leadership. We have a pilot program underway that is the Digital Leadership Program. And this is focused on equipping our technology leaders with the skills that they need to grapple with some of these big questions that we're facing. And what's really interesting about how we're approaching technology leadership training is that we're really prioritizing that agility, the ability to lead change, and also emphasizing those soft skills, or what I like to characterize as smart skills. So empathy, being collaborative, being creative, innovation, all of those skills that are really enduring regardless of what new technology trend we're grappling with. Also, we're investing a lot in training and upskilling as well as reskilling. We launched an initiative called Project UpTech that has a digital literacy component, but is also focused on helping to reskill and new skill our technology workforce. And this is an effort that we're really proud of that I'm happy to talk about if anyone's interested. Finally, partnerships with educational institutions. I think there's really an opportunity for us to work across sectors where organizations can collaborate on curriculum development, helping to create hands-on learning opportunities for students. And that's an area that we're really interested in exploring. It's a new area for us. We're also starting to think a lot about how we help to develop the next generation of technology workers. We have a partnership with Montgomery County Public Schools through their Summer Rise program, where we host high school students and provide them with career development opportunities. That's something that we're really proud of and will be scaling this year. We also have opportunities for undergraduate and graduate students as well. And so we're really trying to approach this in a very thoughtful way. And in all of our career development and workforce development efforts, we're really centering diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, because again, that diversity of perspectives and of skills is really going to be important for us as we, continue to grapple with all of the new challenges and opportunities that AI brings to bear. Next slide, please. So I think I hit on this in what I already shared, but I think what's really critical for educators to think about is, helping students to develop those practical skills. And so, for us, we really value that immersive and applied experience, and are very interested in creating those types of action learning experiences, not just for students, but also for our adult learners in the workplace. And again, critical thinking, very important. That really needs to continue being front and center of all of our AI training and educational experiences. Next slide. So finally, advice for students. I love interacting with students and supporting them. And so if there are any students here, please reach out to me. I also shared my contact information at the beginning, but I really think that what's key for us to think about is that, we are all responsible for our educational and our career journeys. And so, investing in yourselves to continue learning, continue asking questions, I think is really important. And also coming to forums like this one, whether it's a workshop or a conference, to learn and to have interesting discussions and to network with professionals. All of that is really important. And it comes down to really, being proactive and taking initiative. Next slide. So here are some resources that I really enjoy. Something that I do want to share that I have personally found helpful is that Google has made a lot of their micro certificates available to the public at no cost. There are a lot of wonderful online learning resources, books. A great place to start is your library here at Montgomery College. Also, Montgomery County Public Libraries has a lot of wonderful resources. There's some fantastic journals and podcasts too, and I'm happy to share an email with some of the resources that I have found beneficial. Over the weekend, I also just started reading this book, which I'm really enjoying, The Digital Mindset. And so this is another great resource to consider, as well as some fantastic podcasts. So lots of fabulous information out there to get started on your AI learning journey. And in closing, again, just want to keep, hammering that message of, I don't think that it's, us versus robots or AI. It's really, a future that is collaborative, and the best way for us to really maximize the value that we can get out of any technology is by having these types of dialogues and bringing lots of different people together. So with that, I will turn it back over to Dr. Miller and really look forward to chatting with all of you.
Wow, what great presentations. I mean, truly, when we think about the impact of AI and how AI is changing what we do and how we do it, bringing things like the soft skills or the practical skills to the forefront is really something that we've emphasized here at MC. We in fact call them power skills. So my question to the two of you, and I know that we're over time, so I have one question for the two of you is, how do we work together to make sure that we continuously identify those power skills and balance them out with the technical skills that are needed in order to make changes to our curriculum in order to continuously serve the future workforce?
I'm happy. Thank you. That's such a wonderful question. You know, and it's a hard question. One way that we are approaching it at the FDA is by, you know, really working to capture feedback and ideas from our workforce. That's our, you know, primary learner population there. And so when we initiated this effort that I shared, Project UpTech, which is a big, you know, cross-agency upskilling and reskilling initiative, we started with a needs assessment and an information gathering exercise to really understand what are the top technology roles in our organization, what are the skills and competencies associated with that, what are our existing offerings, where are the gaps, and then what are our learners telling us that they're interested in and that they need. And what was so personally interesting to me is that the number one unmet need that our technology workforce has at the FDA is communication training. And so, you know, this is something that we initiated 2 years ago. And so right now we have an effort underway to go ahead and essentially replicate that assessment and continue capturing feedback from our learners. And so we're hoping to start to do it in a much more continual way. But that's something that I think is critically important is finding ways to ask those questions, listen, and continuously reassess your learning resources and offerings and improve them.
Thank you, Jessica. I think it'll be important for academic institutions to obviously adopt AI and sort of incorporate that into the curriculum. Obviously, many universities and colleges are already racing towards how to incorporate it, you know, more strongly into the curriculum. I mean, when computer science, you know, when data science came along, you know, university and colleges raced to have new degrees that sort of evolved around that. So obviously, in the colleges, we have to start introducing foundational courses that are AI related, whether it's, you know, deep learning or machine learning, maybe computer vision, natural language processing. These are some of the probably the related courses or technologies that we may see. Also, universities and colleges should start considering having an AI track. I think it's like you mentioned, Dr. Miller, at the beginning, that this technology is here to stay. So it's not like it's temporary, it's just women will go away. It will stay. So we have to sort of adapt around it. So there may be AI tracks, maybe AI for health. I mean, there is a whole mindset how to use AI for health as an example. So there may be multiple tracks. I mean, again, ethical line, there could be an ethical track for the AI that there will be a different sort of folks interested in it. Also, I think it's important to bring interdisciplinary sort of community into it. So make the AI courses open to not only computer science students, but actually to mathematics, to engineering, to even psychology, and even social studies students, because ultimately we as together have to work in that in a collaboration to figure out what is the impact of AI, the long-term impact and so forth. And also, I think colleges and universities should look for opportunities where they can engage students into actual real-life projects and research opportunities to get AI more embedded into the academic world. So again, work with the industry and, you know, other companies out there or the government agencies and look for that collaboration, that opportunity, how to provide the students the opportunity to work on some, like I said, solve real-life problem while they're in the college. Okay.
Absolutely. And Ashik, while you were talking, I was thinking about, a lot of our focus right now. I feel like there's this sort of collective sense that we're in this like AI race, and everybody's trying to, gain a competitive advantage, and there's so much hype, and particularly like in the federal space, there are a lot of funding opportunities too attached to AI, and so there's almost this sense of urgency, and it's real. And at the same time, the way that we're approaching it within my organization, which is something that I really appreciate, is that we really have a sense of urgency to be thoughtful and to be very measured. And so a lot of our focus right now isn't on starting to, make all of these AI funding investments. It's really spending time thinking about how do we develop meaningful policy? How do we develop evaluation frameworks? How do we think about how we will govern AI in a way that is thoughtful? And so being very intentional about how we are approaching it and establishing the frameworks and supports so that we can use it really well. As part of this, we're also evaluating what are the really important and compelling use cases in our environment that support and align with our mission, so that as we start to make these investments, we're really being as targeted as possible. And, I think that learning environments, whether they're in an academic setting or in a workplace learning setting, should be safe spaces for learners to start to experiment with using these technologies in a way that is appropriate and safe and thoughtful, and really creating opportunities for people, to your point, to have that hands-on experience using technologies that are, fit for purpose is a term that's often used, and data that is fit for purpose, and learning how to do that in an environment that is controlled and supported before pursuing further use. So just wanted to add that.
I really appreciate the way in which you bring intentionality to the forefront, right? It's how we approach and use these tools to help support what we do. So in ASFIA, helping it to support the educational outcomes of our students is top priority. And whether we do it through the development of soft skills or power skills or those the skills that they need in order to transfer, those things are never going to go away. Communication, collaboration, critical thinking, creativity. We do have this thirst for technology, right? And as you had mentioned, Jessica, and I'll end with this point. Technology has been around for a really, really long time, right? And we just have to go back to the 1960s to look at the Jetsons to see how we're living today, right? So much of what they predicted are what we're actually living with today, whether it's looking at our smartwatches or doing video calls on our phones. And we will continue to evolve, we will continue to transform, and we will continue to find ways to leverage this to support what we do and how we do it on a day-to-day basis. So thank you both for your insights into bringing AI into education. Truly wonderful presentations. Please fill out the Ignite Hub survey. Here is a QR code to the survey to give us information. I know Kimberly and her team really use this information to evaluate what they do and future programming. So I know this is a hot topic, so I'm sure this isn't the last time that the Ignite Hub will be discussing AI in education and the workforce. So thank you both, and thank you everybody for attending today.
Thank you, Dr. Miller, for urging people to fill out the survey. Just in closing, we have some tokens of appreciation for both of you, Ashik and Jessica, and Dr. Miller. I promise I have yours when you're back in the building. Thank you for spending time with us. Thank you for filling out the survey. We also like to have a little fun here. So at each table underneath your chair, there's a bag.